Today we're going to be tackling the Pickle rig room on TryHackMe. I'm going to be sharing my methodology, the way that I went through it, and give you guys some pointers to get started with. I finally got to the point over the summer where I'm able to start tackling these challenges, going through some boxes and machines, and gradually getting into that junior pen test area of expertise. So let's get started. The goal today is to exploit a web server. I'm going to find 3 ingredients to help Rick make his potion, transform himself back into human form. We have our questions down here. Okay, so pretty straightforward. I'm going to grab our RP. Personally, I like to have a little mouse pad open on the side of my terminal here so that I can copy and paste things, edit things before I use them on the command line, what have you. So I'll just go ahead and copy and paste that. Before I get going on this machine though, let me give you a base template of methodology notes that I use. Hopefully you can find it helpful. I think that one of the biggest struggles that I have is where do I begin when approaching these machines? To simplify that, I've split my notes into 4 areas: the enumeration phase, the gaining access phase, the initial access phase, and then the priv-esc, which obviously is empty. This is the first room that we're doing, but we're going to use these as our base and we're going to keep building upon it. Everything that you need to solve the machine is actually in these notes, so I'm going to go ahead and challenge you and, pause, kind of read them for yourself, see if maybe you can get through this logically by using something like this and kind of maybe adopt that for yourself. I think it's important to build that for ourselves. This is basically going to be the Bible that we refer to as we continue down this journey. Case in point right here. Well, one of the first things that we do when we have a target is that we're going to begin our enumeration. We're going to use nmap, right? Here I already have a command that I use. I don't have to be thinking about, oh man, what flags, in case you forget. Sometimes there's a break between machines. You don't always hit this on a daily basis, so I think having something to kind of reflect back on is more than beneficial to pick up where you left off. So let's get started then. We'll go ahead and copy this, and we're going to replace our target IP, so, and get going. So off the bat, I already see port 22 and I see port 80. We already know this is a web server exploit type of room, so I'm going to go ahead while this runs because I have the all ports being scanned. That's going to take a little while. I'm just going to go ahead to the website and see what I can poke around and find. Okay. So listen, Morty, I need your help. I've turned myself into a pickle again, and this time I can't change back. I need you to, Morty, log onto my computer and find the last 3 secret ingredients. So this is where, again, having notes is going to come into play. We're going to go back, and I have a website section. So we can do manual enumeration, check in around the source code, see what we can find, and then when we're done with that, we'll go ahead and go through our directory scans. So let's go back. And this seems to be like a static website, but look at this. We have username Rick rules. Let's see. I'm not too familiar with HTML, but everything seems to be pretty standard right there. This is going to be our first big hint right here. So let's go ahead and add this and clean this up. We could try to keep this somewhat organized. All right, we still got some time on this. Looking at this, I'm thinking this is pretty much all we're going to get from this website. It's a static one, so that's pretty simple. Go ahead and run a directory scan and see what else that we can find. And we'll let these run in conjunction, see what populates here. I've run into some instances where dir search didn't quite do me justice, so I do have the GoBuster command down here, but I think in this case we'll be fine. Just a bunch of forbidden web pages so far. Okay, we have a 200 okay. Let's go ahead and navigate to that. See what that looks like. So we have a index facets. Let's see. Mr. Macy's, Pickle rig GIF. This just seems to be some of the back-end assets that are being used. See what else we found. We got robots.txt. It's worth checking out. Wubba-lubba-dub-dub. We'll go ahead and grab that. Maybe this is going to correspond to Rick rules, password question mark. Let's try this out. We have this login PHP as well. So sure enough, username and password portal. Let's try these out. Fingers crossed. Look at that. So let's poke around here. Okay. So it seems like the only thing that we are able to access is this command panel. Let's go ahead and poke around a little bit. Okay, another comment. It seems to be some kind of encoding. Just kind of add that here for future reference, and then we'll keep poking around. Okay, command panel. See, this is a portal.php extension. Let's see, baby ls works. Okay, that seems pretty cool. Can we cat that? Command disabled. Okay, that doesn't work. Let me see. Can I poke around this machine a little bit? Okay, so ID works. What about path? So it seems that we're getting some sort of interface to the backend server through this command prompt. The next step is going to be, how do we get away from this and have a full interface with this server? We're going to do that using a reverse shell. So I have some notes here. It's going to be our first step. I'll go ahead and do that here. We're going to grab our host IP. And what you're going to look for is this inet portion right here. So we'll go ahead and grab that. And we need that because when we generate a reverse shell, I'll put this in the description as well. This is a reverse shell generator. This is where we would plug in our IP, choose the port number. There is a bunch of different shells that they'll generate depending on, whatever your use case is. For me, I have this one that I like to use on these type of machines. We'll go ahead and get that going. So you want to replace the host IP with what we have, and our host port is going to be 444. If we're lucky, we'll be able to execute this, and it's getting hung up, which shows that we might have some action going on. Sure enough, who am I? www data. We've got a reverse shell. One of the things you'll notice though is if you see in my terminal, I have features like autocomplete and command history. But if I was to go here and try to do that, I'm getting these errors. So we're gonna go ahead and stabilize this shell so that we can use those features, kind of make it a little easier to poke around here. Control C. So we're gonna back around our shell. Boom. Now, perfect. Go ahead and clear this up. See what we have in our directory. That's the one that we were looking for. And boom, we got our first flag right there. So I'll go ahead and clean this up too. Mr. Meeseek here seems to be the first ingredient. And then we'll go back to our notes. So now we have initial access. We're going to be running manual commands. Typically, I like to try to poke around a little bit by myself before I go straight to running linpeas or linenum, something like that. Some of those scripts, honestly, they just spit out a lot of information. And I think if you don't really know what you're looking for in the first place, it's not going to be that helpful for you. So I like to kind of poke around here, see if I don't exhaust what I know so far, and then I'll go into that. So we'll go ahead and find other users, see who else is on this machine. Okay, so we got Rick and Ubuntu. Let's see if we can look into Rick. Well, sure enough, we got second ingredients. So I like to use this owl flag because that's going to give me a little bit more information about who has access to this. And as you can see here, we have read, write, execute is available to everybody. That's going to allow us to actually read this file right here. And sure enough, one Jerry tier. So we already have 2 out of the 3 ingredients. Let's try and get lucky. Maybe Ubuntu has something. So total 0. Let's look for some hidden directories. A bash history. Sudo as admin successful. So generally you would kind of want to poke through as much stuff as you can, but the fact that we've already have 2 out of the 3 ingredients, this is a beginner box, I'm pretty sure that the next area is going to be somewhere in the privilege escalation realm. So let's start thinking about checking our sudo privileges and finding some SUIDs that we can maybe exploit. So what do we have? User www data may run the following commands. All, no password. Let me reference back to my machine here. If I was to run the same command, you can see that I'm asked for a password. And here, user echo drj may run all. So the only difference between this is this no password. If someone was to be on my machine, for instance, and start poking around, if they were to try to run a sudo command, they would have to know my password. With this no password though, we should just be able to poke around the box to anywhere we want running sudo. So let's see, for instance, the root directory. So we have permission denied. But if we try this as sudo, we can see now third.txt. And here everybody has at least read access to this file. So let's go ahead and cat that out and see if we can't get that third ingredient. As you can see right here, I forgot to use the sudo command. Try that again. Sure enough, third ingredient, Fleep Juice. Awesome. So to kind of recap, right? We were able to gain access to this machine as the user www data. And then we leveraged the sudo misconfiguration that allowed our user to run all sudo commands with no password, effectively giving us a root command over this box, because we are now able to leverage this sudo and run commands as root that we would not have been able to had there been a password enforced or this configuration was not so vulnerable. So let's go ahead and put in our answers. Here we go, man. We did it. We solved it. Congratulations. Hopefully, you guys were able to pick up some notes from this. Plan on keep making videos along the way, sharing what I've learned, hopefully breaking it down in a way that beginners such as myself can understand. I know it's not the most technical walkthrough, but sharing what I know. Hope you guys have a good day. See you next time.